2024, what an annus horribilis for the accounting profession. It should be written off. It should be consigned to history, never to go back. That is one point of view. Another is it's one of the best years ever. We learned a lot. So many doors opened up for accounting firms. Jeff Phillips, which side of that fence do you sit on for 2024?
Bad year for growth. A year of so much change and some interesting opportunities ahead. And I'm optimistic, Rob.
If you were to give 2024 a grade out of 10, however you like, how does it come out for accountants and firms?
I think the economy wasn't great in 2024. That's no big surprise. So probably a C. And I think probably what's baked into that C is my concerns around some of the return to work announcements of large firms. We've seen some layoffs. So for the employers out there, for the employees, for the people who own firms, it was an average. It was an average year.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
You're not following my grading scheme of mark out of 10. You just went straight for a C there. So we'll say 5 or 6 out of 10, potentially.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay. Well, we're focusing on this episode to what is coming up for 2025. Crystal balls out, betting on black or red. It's always difficult. But what's the problem that we're trying to solve here, Jeff? We're trying to look ahead and make some sense of things. Just sum this up for us where we're going to go here.
What do we think? Where do we think 2025 is going to be? Let's talk about that.
With the trends coming up particularly and
Yeah.
in applying those, how we can use those to our advantage as employers, as employees. This is the Accounting Talent Podcast, focusing on all things talent in the accounting world. So let me ask you, Jeff, what predictions do you have for talent, for people in accounting for 2025?
I have a few predictions. So we're going to see the fruits of the labor of the AICPA and various state boards of accountancy around the pipeline report. How can the global bodies that oversee accounting here in the United States impact the recruiting into the profession? I think we're going to see some work out of the good people that have been working on that this year. So my prediction is that I'm hopeful there's going to be some ideas that come out of that to make accounting more alluring. We've got to increase our value proposition. I hope that where they start with, Rob, is compensation, benefits, and work flexibility for staff.
Well, just hold off on that, Jeff. Let me add to that. My hope, as much as a prediction, I just spoke to somebody from KPMG today. He heads up the Global Recruitment Council for KPMG Global. And he's got it on his heart to bring a lot of the stakeholders together in the brand of accounting. And we've spoken about this earlier episodes of this show, that the brand of accounting is weak. The value prop needs work, but nobody's really taking ownership of that. And the problem is, if everyone takes ownership, then it's all done in their own different jurisdictions and their own different ways, and it's quite disparate. And if it's everyone's problem, then everyone relies on everyone else to do it. If nobody takes ownership of it, then again, we all wander off and do our own thing. So some collaboration, some harmonization, some unification. I'm going to work with this guy at KPMG to see if we can't bring a few people to the table and shape a more joined up narrative for what the accounting profession means, particularly with its attractiveness to young people choosing a career for life. Does that chime with you?
I think it's great. So I have optimism in the U.S. based committee that is trying to make recommendations and make investment for state accounting associations, state boards of accountancy, the AICPA, et cetera. They care about this too, and so we're hoping that we see some leadership from there.
Yeah,
but I will say that, and I've always said that, take control of the situation on a firm level. What can you do to make your own value proposition to talent better to make a difference? And if both of those are working in conjunction, we might have a positive outcome.
Well, we've interviewed Sue Coffey and Lexi Kessler on that advisory pipeline group with the AICPA, and they do have some great ideas. They've sunk a lot of work in. There's a wonderful group they've got there that are affecting change. But it needs to be more than just a manifesto, doesn't it? There needs to be some action on it, some implementation, and on all people with the skin in the game driving that forward as we can all tell a better story. So your first prediction then is what? Just sum up that in a nutshell for us.
We're going to see some ideas that governing bodies and local firms can implement now to increase attractiveness of the value proposition is my one prediction. And my second prediction is don't wait on them. If you own a firm, attack that problem on your firm level. What can you do to influence younger people to join this profession? And we're going to have to adjust and address compensation. Compensation is going, if we dance around compensation, then we're not going to solve the problem. And compensation is led by pricing. In the small firm market, especially, we've got to get pricing right so that we can pay the people right that we want to hire and keep.
On our YouTube channel, the Accounting Influencer channel that houses this show, we've had a few comments on our videos of why should I go into accounting? They don't pay enough. And we recognize it is a problem. The starting salary for a lawyer, a law graduate, is a quarter to a third higher than a starting salary for an accounting graduate. I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. I don't know how similar or apart they are in the UK. That's where I am. You're in the US. But it is a problem. If we're not going to give people competitive salaries to start, that's a problem. And then once you get in the firms, you've got the whole comp structure that you're talking about here.
Yeah, and I compare it in the US to investment banking or consulting or jobs in like general finance. And we're behind on all of those, generally speaking. So especially when you add in the hours that you're working, let's make this more competitive, bring people into the profession. Because yes, you've got to sell it in the long-term benefits, but it's a mistake to not increase compensation from the get-go.
I know you're going to go on to private equity. We can't ignore it. I've done a series on the Accounting Influencers podcast on how private equity is going to be a bigger driver of change than AI because it's so much more disruptive. But one of the features of PE is its ability to put money into a firm. And if that firm's geared up right, they can put that into career development and salaries and comp structures and everything else. And how would a non-PE backed firm compete with something like that? So that's a little introduction here to grease the wheels. Tell us about PE and its impact for 2025, Jeff. What might we see?
I think PE's involvement in the public accounting space is it started as a trickle. Now now it looks like a dam has burst, and I think it's only going to continue in the next few years, including 2025. I went from being sort of a negative. I had a negative opinion of this and the change it could bring. I'm coming around to it being it's going to have a positive change for the profession, especially for the larger middle market firms. But Rob, I live mostly in the world of the small firm now, and so small firms are getting contacted by roll up organizations and PE backed by PE dollars to go and buy up small firms. And yes, they are bringing in necessary overhead required to be able to develop long-term career paths for middle talent, managers and staff. And while there are some drawbacks, I think it has the potential of being a very good thing in terms of recruiting talent into the accounting profession.
Just define for us small firms, Jeff, in your dictionary of life and business.
Sub 5 million.
Okay.
In revenue.
Same in the UK too. That's the vast majority of firms, for sure.
Well, and the American accounting industry has very gray hair right now, Rob. So the average age is probably starts with a 6 of owners, yeah. And so they are frustrated because they don't have an exit strategy, and so this probably is one vehicle for them to have an exit strategy is the buy-ups, the roll-ups of small and medium-sized firms.
When you say exit strategy, what is the exit plan for the PE firms themselves?
It's to sell it to another PE firm that's much bigger than theirs.
Someone's going to make some money down the line, though, haven't they?
Somebody's going to make some money down the line, namely the equity holders and the PE firms themselves. So it's good to get in early, but yeah. So the game that they play is buy you at $5 and sell you at $10, and hopefully anyone that has skin in the game does well with that.
So your prediction here for private equity is it's not just for the big and mid-tier firms. The small firms are going to be in the mix now, and the degree to which they are digitized and agile and offering hybrid working conditions, have a good client base, that's going to dictate their attraction for private equity or their ability to withstand an approach and stay independent.
Yeah. And I think the rise of private equity will, in the long run, have a positive benefit for the talent inside accounting firms.
How
I
come?
think that because I think they're going to invest in the career paths of future leaders and give them more opportunities because of the growth that is mandated by the fact that a PE firm buys another firm.
Mm,
So I think there's some positive opportunities and good news ahead for the talent,
okay.
which is what you and I started this thing talking about earlier this year to begin with.
We did. So we've got more joined up approach from the governing bodies, professional associations. We've got a more pervasive penetration of private equity into the accounting space. What else are you predicting for 2025?
We're going to see an increase of the return to the office,
Wow,
and
we
we
did
don't
an
know.
episode on that just
We
recently.
yeah, hit that other episode, do a deep dive on that, but that's going to keep happening. It's a pendulum shift from 2020 and 2021, where everybody went to work remote. My prediction is it's an overreach, and it's going to drive away talent out of the organizations that pursue this. It still may win for the organizations that pursue this, but I think it's going to really benefit employers who've set up hybrid workplaces. And by hybrid, I mean we have an office, but we also are not afraid to hire remote full-time domestic staff, remote freelancers, or offshore staff. If you're set up for that, there's going to be a lot of people in the job market that are coming your way. Those are potential buyers for small firms, so you can hire your future acquirer. My favorite exit strategy, and the one that is most likely to have a positive outcome for the buyer and the seller. And it's going to create a lot of opportunities, I think, on both ends, because there's going to be more talent in the market, and these firms need to be able to hire talent. They're struggling with hiring right now. So if you're set up for remote, or you want to be set up for remote, there's going to be people coming your way.
I'm confused, Jeff. We said on the last episode, talking about the RTO, the return to office, that there are reasons for it, and many of them
Sure.
legitimate. However, the backlash, the risk that you take in dragging people back to the office who don't want to commute, they're quite happy with the blend that they've got right now. Why would there be more calls for a return to office if employers and firms can see the damage it might do and the impact it would have on their growth?
I don't have an answer for that, Rob, because I'm so against it
But you're still
that
predicting it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to increase. Check out Going Concern. They keep track of when offices, when firms call out return to offices. Um, Look, I think that the leadership in the firms that are making this have a great business case for why they want this to happen. Nobody is saying that the office is bad. It's very, very good. The problem is that they're not looking deeply into what the talent in our industry is looking for. They want work anywhere opportunities, work time flexibility. They want an increase of work life balance. They want to not be on call constantly for such a low pay. So I don't see how these things add up where the people are happy to stay when they're not getting paid and they're on call and completely stressed out. Oh, and they have a 2-hour commute every day that they have to invest in. So it's probably philosophically a great move for the companies, because they get to wrap their hands around their staff, and there's benefits to that. Staff's just not going to like it.
The Great Resignation 2.0. Could it happen? Are people going to push back on that? We will see, but that's a bold prediction. We'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah, they're going to push back on it.
Yeah.
That is that. Let's watch this. Let's watch this podcast a year from now and see if we're right or wrong. But I'm telling you, they're going to push back.
Well, you're on the record, Jefferson. The war for talent is over.
And the talent won.
There you go.
It's an easy formula. So let's build great companies, pay people well, and give them a great career path, and accommodate what they're looking for in employment. And you win, and they win.
Yeah.
It's really simple.
It's not escaped my notice too that the people with the shortest commutes in an accounting firm are the ones that are paid the most, because they've got the biggest salaries and packages, and they can afford to live closer to the office, so they don't have that 1-2 hour commute. But anyway, that's for another conversation. So we've got more calls for a return to office. That is what you're predicting in 2025. What else is in your crystal ball?
We're going to continue seeing bad news about the numbers of people coming into the profession. I think we're still on a downward trend on that. I feel like that really has started in the last 2 years. I may be wrong, but we're still in a period where we're confused about the requirements that should be taken to get a CPA in the first place, the extra year, the extra work experience, the extra college credits, some of which are not even in accounting. And so we're keeping that bar high while the value to get over the bar remains low. Right. So that's why I'm so interested in where I led with is what the talent workforce and the pipeline workforce is going to tell us. My hope is that they're going to call for increased compensation. They're going to call for lower barriers to entry to get into the CPA pipeline. Who knows? Because there's loud voices against that in the profession and the leadership. But I know this: if the bar is high but the value is low, do you think that will lead to more people coming to this profession or fewer? And I think the answer is lower until the value is higher than the bar, because the value to get into investment banking compared to the bar is great. The value to get into consulting is great. The value to get into corporate finance is a little bit less, but still above the bar to get into it. So let's compare those values and the costs and increase our value proposition, and then you'll see people come into it.
Yeah. So you're predicting a continued leakage of talent out of the profession for various reasons. So, and that's people not coming into the profession, but also people in the profession that are going to leak out and go into industry and go into a tech for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. So we're going to lose out two ways, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to keep seeing high turnover inside accounting firms. We're going to keep seeing numbers from college graduates drop in terms of people taking the CPA exam. Maybe if the economy is bad, you see that number tick back up a little bit because this is a economy-proof, recession-proof industry. I don't know, but I don't think so.
Yeah. You've not mentioned AI, Jeff, in your list of predictions. I suppose that's everywhere and that's just going to grow and grow. So that's such a safe prediction. Any other predictions you want to make before I ask you to come up with which one will have the greatest impact for employers in 2025? Anything else?
We are going to see, I think, in the next year, some big answers around how AI can automate tax and accounting work and what the impacts are on staff. I do think we're going to start to have answers. Right now, it's a echo chamber of promises and hype, and we're in predictions. But I think we're going to start seeing real answers about where that's going to affect the accounting market. So I'm interested in that. And then lastly, I think that entrepreneurial small firms are going to increase in number. I think that entrepreneurial and progressive hybrid style firms are going to hire more remote people than they did in previous years. They're going to take advantage of the opportunity of talent leaving, and so we're going to see a bump up in the hiring of remote full-time domestic staff in the firms below the top 100. That's what I think. And being an accounting fly, we'll know for sure if that's happening or not.
Well, what will mirror that, in my view, is the rise of entrepreneurial firms and startups and people living corporate jobs and doing their own thing. TikTok now is full of become an AI consultant overnight and become a content creator and do this and do that and leave the corporate treadmill, start out on your own. All of these startup businesses, even if they're solo businesses, are going to need an accountant and a bookkeeper, and there's going to be firms required, perhaps in very niche industries, to serve all of these people. And these are young people as well, like the millennials, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xers sometimes, that are all starting their own thing. They're going to want to be serviced by good accountants.
Yes. I will end this with a very optimistic thought, and because I believe it. I think that more Gen Zs and millennials will be starting accounting firms or buying out and modernizing the firms owned by 60-year-olds. This is an industry ripe for entrepreneurial development. This is a great place to own a business because people need you, they value, there's high trust, and you can make really good money and have tremendous impact on the lives of your clients. And that is fun. It's important work. And so I'm here for that. And I spend every hour of my day working in that field at Paget is finding entrepreneurs who want to start firms or want to buy firms. And I think we're going to see a big uptick in that.
Yeah. Jeffrey, if you had to put your house on black or red and dictate which of these things you've mentioned is going to have the biggest impact, going to be the most disruptive or the most likely to happen, where are you going to land?
PE is going to have the biggest impact, disruption, ripple effects
Yeah.
on the profession in the next 12
It's
months.
everyone.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. And that's good because
It can be good if they invest in what I call the intelligent overhead of building up the teams, which launches better careers, increases compensation, and allows talent to be a part of high growth firms that feel like a startup from the 90s rather than an accounting firm from the 80s. And so I'm less confident on if that's going to happen. That's a wait and see. But I can tell you what, there's going to be more money flowing into this profession than ever before in 2025.
Wow, you hit it here. This is the Accounting Talent Podcast. We're going to also publish this on our Accounting Influencers podcast as a bonus episode because there's so much good stuff in here. We're coming towards the end of a season for this podcast. There's another show that's going to round up the year coming out next week where we'll wrap things up. I will do a review of the show, and then we're going to take a little break as we reassess. But if we do come back, Jeff, or even if we don't, and you and I have some conversations offline, what kind of hot topics do you think we could address for talent in accounting next year that our listeners, viewers might be interested in?
Oh man, there's so many things. I want a deep dive for accounting from employers on how to select people.
Ooh,
How to be better at predicting somebody would be a great hire or a dud
that's great.
hire.
We've all hired a dud, haven't we?
We've all hired a dud, and we've all probably been duds at some point in time in our careers.
Yeah.
It's just mismatches. I'm concerned and want to spend time thinking about how firm owners can address turnover, and what they can do personally to address that. How compensation can lead to reducing turnover, but also how increasing productivity while increasing work-life balance can affect turnover. These are really important topics that affect, if you're an owner of a firm, it affects the equity you hold in your ability to retire and sell a firm one day. These are essentials. Productivity inside the firm and having crisp systems so that the owner can work less and oversee and be the CEO of their firm. These are topics that are on my mind right now, Rob, that I want to dive deep into next year.
Yeah, there's a lot more in the tank with Jeff Phillips. It's been a privilege sharing this journey with you in this season, Jeff, having you as a co-host and giving such passionate insights into what is really happening behind the scenes with talent and recruitment in accounting firms. Thank you all so much, you guys, for tuning into the show. And we'll be letting you know in due course what's happening with the Accounting Talent Podcast. But this is not the end. It's goodbye for now. We'll see you for next week's episode to draw everything to a close as we come to the end of 2024. Thank you for tuning in and be part of the Accounting Talent Podcast.